Okay, Paul, as we start this interview, I think the disclaimer is necessary. Playoffs start tonight for the Ballers up at Yolo. So we don't know the results of how this is going to go. We're just excited about the regular season. Year one of your team is complete. So before anything else, congratulations on getting it done.
Thank you. Yeah. It was quite a sprint and quite a whirlwind. But we're pretty pleased with the way the regular season ended up, and certainly pleased with winning record, second half championship. Don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs, but fingers crossed, knock on wood, we're hopeful there as well.
31-17 in the second half. You had the second best overall record in the Pioneer League. Did 96 games go by like in the blink of an eye? Because the season is shortened compared to a major league season, but man, that just seemed to go by so quickly.
I mean, sometimes it felt like it went by so quickly, and sometimes it felt like it was for forever. It's weird how time does that. Slow minutes, fast hours. But yeah, I mean, looking back now on all the things that happened between now and June 4th opening day, it's an incredible whirlwind.
So I mentioned the Yolo High Wheelers. It's important to also recognize they're in the playoffs. They're who you're playing in the first round, but they're also a team that your group had to create in order for the Ballers to even exist in the Pioneer League. And I don't want to go too far back into the history of that. People can do their own research, but that's also a testament of the fact that you wanted the Ballers to happen so bad. You had to create their tandem team to even do this, and they had the fourth best record in the Pioneer League.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things there. Like we had to do two teams to get one team done. Yeah. So it's hard enough to get a team launched in 9 months. It's way harder to get two teams launched in 9 months. And it also, I think, speaks to our respect and integrity of the game, that it was really important to us to put two really good teams together. This wasn't the Harlem Globetrotters versus the Washington Generals. We didn't put a team out there to lose to. We put a team out there to win. We hired Billy Horton to run that team, who had won Manager of the Year the year before. He put together an incredible team, and then we put a staff together to try to put a really great team in Oakland. And actually, to be honest, cost both teams a lot that they played each other so many times, because we're the two first teams of a West Coast division. So scheduling wise, we played each other 36 times in the regular season. If you take out the YOLO games from Oakland's record, they're by far the best team in the league. And if you take YOLO's games against Oakland out, they're like the number 2 team in the league, or number 3 team in the league. And so it's two great teams who now, based on the gods of baseball, of course, end up playing each other in the first round of the playoffs.
It just has to be mentioned because that's all the under the radar stuff. It's not just the Ballers. It goes even beyond that. So congratulations in some way on that too. I want to do this question with you fill in the blank at the end. I rarely ever do something like this, but I think it's also important that we keep this up for interpretation. And maybe I'll answer it too, but to you, this season for the Ballers is a success because blank.
Because we've created what we wanted to create, which is joy and community and fans. Right. It's the, this season has been really hard. I'm not going to pretend that it hasn't, in a lot of ways that could have been foreseen, in a lot of surprising ways. And there have definitely been a lot of tough moments for myself, for Brian, really for anybody part of the Ballers. What sustained us through all of that was people coming to us saying, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for, I thought that I was never going to take my grandfather to a baseball game again. I thought my kids were never going to go see baseball again. Thank you for working so hard to keep baseball in the community. And for some people, they feel like that's going to happen now. There's some people who have really, gotten excited about what we're doing. We did a free tattoo parlor thing, and 30 people got, the Ballers tattoos. That's incredibly scary, by the way, for me, because it just shows how much responsibility we have as stewards of this team. But that's it. It's like, it isn't, we haven't, created a Major League Baseball fan base yet. Like we're not, but we have, for a group of fans who have really tied, their excitement around baseball and community to what we're doing. We have created joy for them. And that's what we wanted to accomplish from the beginning.
I would say my fill in the blank there is just because you made it and you did it. And I think that's maybe the short answer, but considering the odds, considering the obstacles, considering the climate of sports in Oakland and the East Bay, I mean, you guys did it against a lot of odds. I would say that you've baked the cake. I'll still give you some time because I know there's some icing to put on the cake, and I know there's some candles to light, and I know there's a song to sing, but I feel like you guys have baked the cake, and even, that's the foundation I know of what you're doing. So for me, that's what it is.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think even baking the cake might be, generous. Like we are doing this for the long term.
Yeah.
We're doing this for, what success that can be measured in years, not year or months. Like, I think we are really proud of the foundation that we built. So maybe it's the first layer of a cake, and there's going to be more layers going in the future.
It's a great way to put it. Is it fair to say that you, as somebody who co-founded the team, you have a lot of pull, have a lot of influence? So I don't know that you want to go out and say, well, here's my favorite player. And you don't maybe even have to mention one and single somebody out. Do you have a favorite player that you found out in this inaugural season of the Ballers?
It's hard. It's hard. There are a few favorites, but obviously, Dondrei Hubbard comes to mind as somebody who, has really been the heart and soul of this team. Like he was our franchise player. He doesn't meet the eligibility requirements, but we were able to get him to put him in sort of a player coach role and really mentor the young guys. And he's done that from the very beginning. And he puts a smile on everyone's face. But he also, knows how to thoughtfully, challenge people who maybe aren't playing their best. He really is like a consummate baseball leader. And then, he's faced a really terrible tragedy.
I heard about that.
His mom was in a senseless act of violence, was killed in Houston. He's rejoining the team. He was with the team on Monday. The team is really rallying around him. So it's, given both what he's done on the field and the situation that's off the field, it's hard not to just, really love and root for the guy.
And that's the beautiful thing about sports. I mean, it kind of goes with life. It transcends life, but obviously real life has been part of his sports experience. So I wish him the best, obviously. Your baseball team, in back-to-back nights in the month of May, you had a 21-15 win, and then on the next night, you had a 27-11 loss. Is the Pioneer League just wild like that? I mean, what did you experience playing the other teams and the gameplay and the game style? How did it go from that sense?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about the Pioneer League is you have to be really strategic about the way you use your bullpen.
Yeah.
It's 6 games in a row, and not a lot of rest. And so, something that we just learned in the course of the season. Actually, if you see some of the beginning games, like there were some blowouts. There's one game that was so bad we didn't even post the score we lost to.
I saw that.
We just said we lost to a lot of runs because it was so embarrassing. But it's actually kind of a strategic situation. It's like you have to make a determination in the middle of the game. If a guy doesn't have it, like we still might need him to eat up the innings, right? And so those actually things happen. But it's kind of part of a chess game, right? Because you're kind of playing the series, trying to win the series, and at some point in time, you might have to just say like, all right, it's batting practice for the other guys because we just need we can't risk game 4 because we're so down in game 3. So it's different,
right?
Than MLB strategy, but it's a part of the chess game of baseball.
So a couple months ago, there were some growing pains that came to the forefront and in the headlines and the media and the press of the Oakland Ballers, and whether it was player living conditions or I know some medical situations. You switched managers midway through the season. Yep. I know none of this was optimal, and I'm not here to bring this up because we're trying to, point this out or make it a negative. Because in honesty, I think you and your team took on so much starting a franchise. I mean, a year ago, like last September, nobody knew about the Ballers. First I ever heard about the Ballers, it was almost late November. You had such a late start. You're initially going to play at Laney. Then you decided to switch and build Raimondi, which is awesome. So many things to figure out behind the curve of just time and the timeline. So my point is, you bit off a bunch, and maybe at some point in the year, things just kind of snowballed a little bit. Can you kind of explain at least how your team took those problems, those criticisms, what you did with them, and how it seems like now everybody's moved past them, everything did get resolved? I think that's a testament.
Yeah, I mean, look, we did a lot in a short period of time, and we weren't perfect, and we made some mistakes. And I think but what we always endeavored to do was to be open about where we thought the mistakes were, and to fix them quickly. And so that situation specifically, it's we were scrambling really quickly to find players' homes. We actually found really nice houses. We put a video on recently showing the houses. They're actually cool houses, but we admittedly put too many players in them, and they were cramped and they were complaining about it. And that's on us, right? But before anybody was complaining in the public about it, we had already gone through the work of finding another house and putting them in place. We had some challenges related to, player safety with some car break-ins. And, we before anybody was talking about it in the press, we were, moving players to other houses in other parts of Oakland, working with OPD and in the sheriff's department on making sure that there was patrols. We didn't need outside scrutiny to know where we needed to improve and to get better. We're always going to hold ourselves to really high standards. I mean, we have incredible standards for this organization based on what we want to achieve for the long term. And that means when you make a mistake, being accountable for it, improving and moving on. I think the other thing that we learned, though, is, when that turned into not a private, we made a mistake and we got to be accountable for it, but something that was very public, is, there's not a lot of minor league teams in the country, probably no independent teams in the country, that would have a major media publication, challenge them like that in public. Like, right. It means that we had created something that was big enough, that people cared enough about, that people were interested in the cracks, interested in what wasn't working, interested in sort of challenging the team. And, though it wasn't we didn't want to learn the lesson that way. It was a very important lesson, for us. And it's a very important lesson as we sort of set the standards for the future, that we have to be playing at, MLB standards, even though we have, independent minor league resources, and we just have to make sure that we're doing things at the best we possibly can.
Well, and to the point, I mean, I'll just, interject personal opinion here. It's not the fact that you encountered some issues. To me, it's how things were responded to. You didn't try and brush it off. You didn't try and pretend that things weren't happening. You tried to address them, right? I mean, I think that's probably the statement in all of this. But it kind of brings me to, like, I'm a big fan of Welcome to Wrexham, right? And when I watch that show, I see how many challenges they encounter, Ryan and Rob do, in terms of owning and running a team, and the team trying to compete with other big markets and other big franchises and longstanding other clubs. So if Paul and Brian of the Ballers are like Rob and Ryan of Welcome to Wrexham, like if there was a TV crew documenting your entire behind-the-scenes experience this year with the Ballers, what's a scene that fans wouldn't have got to have seen, like, because you didn't get to show it on a show? What's something fans would love to have known about your experience behind the scenes this year?
I mean, the behind the scenes of opening day could have made maybe even a whole season. The whole Raimondi Park project, we had a month to build that ballpark, which by nature means you're still going to have work to do opening day. But there were some challenges, logistical challenges. There was a storm in the Midwest that stopped us from being able to get our press box, installed in time. So our press box was a couple days late. We don't have 2 days of flex in a project plan that builds a whole ballpark in a month. So, 48 hours of, press box. We were installing everything during that time. We were still putting up lights on opening day. At 8 a.m. on opening day, I walked into the parking lot where we had pre-sold 200 VIP tickets, and there was a chain blocking the parking because we hadn't fully signed the contract with the company that we were renting it from. That got resolved between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Jeez.
So, the behind the scenes of opening day could make a movie, not just a one episode of a TV series. But ultimately, we got it all done. Literally, 5 p.m. of opening day is, I think, when the Wi-Fi, turned on, and 6:35, the game starts. So I think that for I'm actually getting anxious just describing it again. But for people who are looking for the behind the scenes, that is an amazing behind the scenes experience.
Did you have fun this year? I mean, it sounds like a ton of stress, a ton of hard work. I'm sure a couple extra gray hairs found their way in there. I speak from experience, but in some way, I mean, next year's got to be easier. But was this year fun?
That's a great question. I think at the beginning of the season, it wasn't that fun. We had this scramble to put the ballpark together, and right. Then guess what? You get to win is you get now that it's put together, you get to throw 48, baseball games. It's like 48 gigantic weddings. I think as the season went on, it started to get a lot more fun. And honestly, the last few weeks have been a lot of fun. Like, the
great.
Team has come together after the hiccups that you mentioned and manager changes. The team is really bonded. They're just one of the things we always wanted was players to play with a smile on their face. That was like one of the things that Brian and I said from the beginning is like, let these players have fun playing baseball. And you see it now. They're having fun. They're hugging each other. They're really excited to bond as a team. The team is winning. The attendance has been skyrocketing through the end of the season. These last few weeks have been a lot of fun.
I'll throw out the numbers here and correct me if I'm right or wrong. 1,600 fans and about $1.235 million. That was the recent investment round that you guys put out to the public, correct?
It was ended up being 2,200 fans.
Oh, there you go.
And that's the 1.235 million is right. That's the kind of regulatory limit. And it was 8.5 days
wow.
to get that kind of response. So that was been incredibly exciting. We're incredibly excited to have 2,200 new owners, and I think we're doing something with this crowdfund. The crowdfund is starting to happen more and more in sports, and we're excited to see it. We followed the Roots when they did it before, and it's great to be able to have fans be able to have some economic upside if their team that they love does well, and we're part of that as well. But I think we're doing something that's never been done before, which is we're actually giving fans a voting say. So as soon as the season is done, we're actually the 2,200 fans are going to be able to elect their own representative on the board of directors. They will have equal rights to any other board member. They'll all be able to express their opinion on the full direction of the team. And then we're going directly to fans on issues like, can the team move? Can you change the logo? Should we re-sign, the head of baseball? The things that we know fans care most about.
Wow.
So we're excited about the level of response. We're also excited, to kind of innovate a model that we think other sports teams should adopt. We think if you really center your fans, why not really give them, a full seat at the table?
How much does the investment help the business side of what you're doing? Does it cover a little bit? Does it cover a lot? What does that mean? And maybe what you can share about the books, where does it go? Like, what's the expense here for the Ballers?
Yeah, I mean, it like we're right now, still in investment mode. My background is startup companies, and successful startups. You raise money in order to get to the point of being break even. This money allows us to get, hopefully get on that path where we hope we can be there next year or the year after. And then, once you're a sustainable organization and, revenue covers your costs, then you're in there for the duration. And, it's just about how well you perform, both on the field and off. So this is a big, boost for us. And the level of excitement, the amount of fans that wanted to be involved in it is a little bit unprecedented as far as we understand it. And that's pretty exciting as well.
That's great. And you mentioned earlier about the sustainability of the franchise. I said to you before we started recording, I mean, year one, playoffs, establishing yourself, awesome. That's great, especially under these, kind of controversial times in East Bay sports. But I've always wanted to make sure that the Ballers were sustainable for a decade. Let's just start there, 10 years. I want you doing great things 10 years down the road. That really would be the gift to the community. So in terms of the next steps to make that happen, obviously the investment round is a great thing. Are there any other things that need to happen that you'd like to see happen? What makes this an even more sustainable product down the road? Maybe some things we do know or some things we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we just got to keep improving. I mean, there's some things about Raimondi that we'd like to be better for next year. I think people have loved the experience. They've asked for more shade.
Okay.
They've loved the experience, but when we get really packed, the lines can get a little bit long. So we have some like operational things to do, a list of fixes that we want to have in place for next year. And then we like, and that's true for like ballpark improvements. That's true for the team. We're very happy with the performance of the team, but we've learned a little bit about, how to sign players and how to make them comfortable. And so we have a whole bunch of baseball ops checklists to do, but really across the organization, what we want to do is build on this year for next year and just keep getting better. I totally agree with you. Like, we're very happy with this year's performance, particularly in light of how much we had to take on. But we would never want our success to be measured with what we achieved in a year. We want our success to be measured with what we achieve in 10 years and 20 years. Like this was started based on the concept that baseball could stay in Oakland for the duration. That's a long period of time. And so what I'd like to do is, maybe next year we sit down again and say, did we get better?
Yeah.
If we keep being able to answer every single year, did we get better? Eventually we'll meet our ambitions. Our ambitions are big, but we believe that incrementally every year improving is the way to get there.
A while back, there was a big deal about the Ballers trying to play a baseball game at the Coliseum. I've got two more questions left. Now that it seems like the schedule is quite open in the summertime next year, I know the Roots and Soul will be playing matches, soccer matches, and maybe the conversion of the Coliseum, but is that idea still out there? Is there any discussion of that? And then you have Raimondi, so you're set. Like, that is your home. But for the sentimental aspect, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps kind of thinking about this. Is there any idea ever that you could play one special baseball game there a year? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we would very much like to do that. Yeah. Full stop, like to do that. We love Raimondi. We want that to be our home. Yeah. We've developed a great relationship with the community. There's really exciting energy and momentum in that community, and we're excited to be a part of it. But to be able to play baseball in the Coliseum would just be an absolute dream. And so, we've had a great relationship with the Roots from, before we even announced our
Sure.
launch. They've been really supportive partners. They've helped us out in a million different ways. So yeah, we're in discussions, with them about, how to do it. You mentioned the complexity, which is it's going to be converted to, a soccer pitch. And so we have to figure out, how you're able to use it for baseball a few times a year. But our dream would be, to play a few games there,
Sure.
kind of the big games, maybe if we get July 4th, having a fireworks night and having July 4th, if, maybe our opening day, like maybe Father's Day, like being able to honor the Coliseum with playing baseball there, and being able to bring that, the experience of going back to the Coli, for a baseball game to the fans.
I mean, even if you sold out a certain amount of the stadium, I mean, just what an event, what a spectacle that would be. And just what a nostalgic feeling that would be for people to have it go away and then come back in a different shape and form, even if it's just once or twice or one series a year. And that is kind of my last question. I mean, business for you guys this year. I suppose you say there was competition right down 880 with the A's still playing and this crossover year and your first year of existence. What do you expect it to be like? I would imagine there'd be a certain boost as people next summer kind of have their feelings a little bit more settled and maybe more resolved. And this year, it's just a lot of emotions with people who maybe even are looking at the Ballers and saying, I'm not ready for that yet. I mean, you'd have to think that there's going to be an uptick, right, next year?
Yeah. I mean, we hope that there is, both because, there isn't sort of quote unquote competition, and also because I think the word of mouth and people talking about the experience and how much fun they've had at Raimondi, is spreading, and we'll have more time to make sure that everybody knows about us by the time of next year. But yeah, I mean, look, this whole experience for many of us has felt like a death in the family. And, I've said this before, but it's the death in the family of like the relative who threw all the fun parties. Like, this has been hard. And people have reacted to it in different ways. Some people have, sworn off baseball,
right,
for forever. Some people have kind of have sort of gotten to be part of the Ballers community early. And there's some people who are, soaking up their last nostalgia at the Coliseum and, aren't ready for what we're doing. We want to be here. We'll be here. We'll be patient.
Yeah.
If people are ready to come try it out next season, we're going to be here throwing a great time, and we'd love to have them, be part of it. I mean, that's what's so great about baseball. And that's really what's been so great about the Oakland baseball community, amongst all others, which is that there's not a lot of judgment. There's not a lot of like context. You don't have to be from a certain place, a certain walk of life. All you have to do is show up and root for Oakland and chant, "Let's go Oakland," and your family. And, the Ballers are more than ready to welcome you to the family whenever you're ready.
Are you guys looking for a post-game show host next year?
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
In all seriousness, I wish you guys the best in the playoffs. But, even if it ends how you want or how you don't want, it's been a great season, a great inaugural season for the Ballers. Paul Friedman, really appreciate your time. Best of luck, and we'll chat again soon.
Thank you so much for having me.